Hi there, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. Today I thought we'd take another look at the cinema of Cliff Twemlow, and a film that sees him reprise his role of Steve The Mancunian Donovan. Yes, it's the sequel to GBH2, Lethal Impact. I suppose the question you immediately find yourself asking upon discovering there is a sequel to GBH is, how can there be a sequel to GBH? Like Hell Up in Harlem before it, and Crank 2 High Voltage after it, GBH2, Lethal Impact, is a sequel to a film whose main character inconveniently met a violent death at the end of the first film, and has had to be miraculously resurrected for a clearly unplanned for sequel. At the end of the first GBH, its hero, Steve Donovan, was cornered in a nightclub by police and apparently shot to death several times over at close blank range. An issue that GBH2 would rather you forget, but begrudgingly deals with halfway through, when a police detective remarks that all of the bullets managed to miss Donovan and hit the wall behind him, resulting in the police having to pay $2,000 towards a new wall for the nightclub. So GBH2 finds Steve Donovan alive and well and living in Malta, where he appears to have spent the years in between the two movies burning the candle at both ends. GBH2's introduction to Donovan actually seems to be a parody of the famous opening scene of The Stud, which you'll recall began with Oliver Tobias waking up, fixing his hair, putting on aftershave, and generally making himself look good for the ladies, before catching a look at himself in the mirror and remarking, "You handsome bastard." GBH2, on the other hand, opens with Steve Donovan waking up with a hangover, breaking wind, and then catching a look at himself in the mirror and remarking, "You ugly bastard." It's a rather obscure film reference if you consider that The Stud came out in 1978 and this is the early 1990s. Then again, Twemlow had recently appeared in a film with Oliver Tobias, so maybe that experience had jogged his memory of The Stud's opening scene. Keller, the nightclub boss villain of the first GBH film, also briefly shows up here, although he is more of a good guy in this film, by virtue of the fact that a gang of vicious drug dealers and child pornographers are muscled in on Keller's Manchester nightclub territory and have essentially forced Keller into exile. Why should this be of interest to Keller's old adversary Donovan? Well, it turns out that the same gang have also forced Donovan's underage niece into appearing in a child porn film, and she has committed suicide out of shame. Actions that set into motion Donovan's return to Manchester in order to get revenge on the paedophile gang, and also proves that he can still chew up and spit out the bad guys, quite literally, in the scene where he bites off somebody's nose. The source of Donovan's rage here, a gang that gets underage kids hooked on drugs and forces them into kiddie porn and prostitution, does almost single-handedly mould GBH2 into being the darkest in tone of all the Twemlow films. As with the recent Rocky and Rambo films, GBH2 takes the opportunity to revisit a once seemingly indestructible, near superhero level character after they've gone through the aging process and gotten burnt out and beaten down by the world. The Donovan of GBH2 is a borderline alcoholic, is estranged from his family, and is generally at his lowest point in life. Coming 8 years after the original film, GBH2 does feel like it was born out of a genuine desire to revisit this character, rather than simply do a retread of the first film, as well as tackle the uncomfortable subject of child exploitation. The first time I saw GBH2 in the early 2000s, I did wonder if the film was being rather alarmist in its nightmarish depiction of a Britain rife with influential paedophiles and child pornographers. Sadly, looking back at the film from a post-YouTube perspective, I have to admit that I was wrong, and GBH2 is often chillingly on the money. Dialogue referring to paedophiles being protected by too many influential ships, MPs, MBEs, you name it, is frighteningly accurate given what we do know now. It is tempting to wonder if someone involved in this film had heard ugly stories about the likes of Savile, Stuart Hall and Cyril Smith, and their rage manifested itself not only in GBH2 but in an earlier unmade Twemlow project called The Blind Side of God, which only exists as a promotional trailer and whose proposed plot involved a vigilante gunning for paedophiles. GBH2 should, in theory, be the high point of Twemlow's career. It looks to have had a bigger budget than usual, boasts some location work in Malta, and the acting, direction and fight choreography are of a higher standard than the original film. However, it just feels like the personality, humour and sense of fun of his other films has gone astray here, and is much missed. Fittingly though, given the grim tone, this is by far the most violent of all his films. Boys is a tough, brutally violent film. Hands are chopped off, people are set on fire, Donovan is tortured with knives by a gang of sadistic lesbians. By far the most perverse and twisted scene finds Donovan breaking up the set of a kiddie porn film and getting revenge on two of the perpetrators in the manner of a male rape, firing a shotgun at one guy's ass and forcing another to fillet his gun before blowing his head off, of course.
How's this for a blowjob, fellas?
Supposedly, Twemlow had an eye on selling GBH2 to British television, but given how much the film goes in for violence and extreme gore, I'd have to question whether this film wouldn't have had problems being passed for a UK video release in the early 1990s, let alone playing intact on British television back then. Would the BBFC have cut GBH2? Well, we'll never know for sure, as this is one of a number of Twemlow films where a question mark exists over where, when, if this film ever got released. As you'll know if you've seen the video I did for The Eye of Satan, I got my copy of GBH2 from actor Steve Powell, who incidentally has his head chopped off in a lift in this film. Powell mentions on his website that his copy of the film is a 3rd or 4th generation VHS, which I guess makes mine a 4th or 5th generation copy. In case you're wondering, the alternating between black and white and colour in the clips isn't a stylistic homage to Lindsay Anderson's If. It's just that my copy is so many generations removed from the original that the colour is pretty much drained out of it. Apparently there was a version of this film, put together years after the fact, which incorporates footage from the original film, presented in the form of flashbacks, in the manner of The Hills of Eyes Part 2 and Crazy for Ethel 2. Now, I haven't seen that version of the film, so I can't really pass judgment on it. I can understand the thinking in trying to turn GBH2 into a self-contained film. It does contain many callbacks to the events and characters of the original film that are sure to go over the head of anyone who hasn't seen GBH at first. At the same time, GBH1 and GBH2, while bonded by these characters and their characters' histories, are rather chalk and cheese and night and day. GBH1 is the youthful work of cinematic rookies, while GBH2 is more professional in execution and more mature in tone. GBH1 is good-natured, bordering on tongue-in-cheek, while GBH2 is tackling heavy issues like child pornography and dealing with the ageing process. GBH2 finds the characters of the original film aged, cast on the scrap heap of life, but defiantly stepping back into the ring to tackle a mean and degenerate society. GBH2 does have a strong love-hate relationship with its Manchester location. Donovan cruises the streets at night, delivering a Travis Bickle-like commentary on the criminality and moral decay he sees around him. At the same time, Donovan does take male pride in the fact that he can not only survive in such a brutal environment, but he can also be its master.
And you're still around, you ugly bastard.
As in the Donovan Winter film, The Deadly Females, GBH2 at one point works a montage of real-life newspaper headlines about crime and violence into the proceedings, as if to add legitimacy to the fictional violent atmosphere being depicted here on screen. In another blurring of fact and fiction, GBH2 also includes a cameo from Bunny Lewis, a famous Mancunian drag act and nightclub owner, who back in the 1970s even got his own big screen vehicle called A Couple of Beauties. Here, Bunny plays a nightclub owner called Bunny, so essentially appears to be playing himself in this film, although sadly doesn't appear in drag. In fact, apart from the giveaway name, you never believe from his appearance here that he was in fact a famous drag act.
30 years. 30 bleeding years dressed in your partner, but
I do feel the need to comment a bit on GBH2's equally bizarre and frustrating ending, so some spoilers here. It initially looks as if the film is going for a direct Death Wish rip-off ending, as a police detective, sympathetic to Donovan, offers to turn a blind eye to his vigilante killing spree if Donovan will agree to leave town. Then, however, the detective throws in an additional condition that not only must Donovan leave town, but he must also get married to a woman he briefly met in Malta, but a woman who appears to have no connection to the detective who is insisting on this marriage. Things become even stranger when at the wedding reception a mysterious femme fatale figure shows up and as her henchmen shoot to death all of this film's main characters, including, it seems, Donovan himself. Okay, I have a feeling that this ending was just meant as a massive cliffhanger designed to keep us in suspense until the next instalment. It leaves the fate of all this film's main characters hanging in the balance, as well as opening up questions as to who this mysterious woman is and what her connection is to Donovan. I imagine a follow-up film would have cleared all this up, and sure enough, a third film is promised in this film's end credits. Sadly, Twemlow died not long after making GBH2, and so the question of how Steve Donovan would have survived to fight another day will now never be answered. No Twemlow film is without merit, and while GBH2 isn't my favourite of his films, it does have much to recommend to it. It's fast-paced, ultra-violent, and features some of the best acting Twemlow ever did on camera. I just wish the film would have lightened up a bit here and there. Still, while GBH2 might not have been intended to be Steve Donovan's last hurrah, it does at least ensure that Twemlow's most iconic character does go out with a bang. Anyway, that's all for now, so all that remains to say is good night and God bless.